In this video, we're going to be having a look at incorporating quotes. Now, incorporating quotes is a skill that's quite difficult to do. Incorporating quotes is what the examiners have tried to do over the last few years to see how well the students can remember the content that they've learned, but then put it into a new context that they give them in the exam. And this new context is easily created when they give a quote. So it stops students from just regurgitating information and not necessarily applying it in a new context, which is what the quote does. So now we have to figure out how we incorporate this quote. Because in the marking, at the marking centre, in the marking criteria, it'll often say uses the quote effectively, incorporates the quote effectively. And students don't know, well, I've used the quote, but how do I know if I've used it effectively or not? Well, using it effectively means that it's incorporated throughout your paragraph and it's not necessarily the last thing that you use. So often we will see where students will be given a quote and then the first thing that they do is they will copy down the quote in its entirety. So in this case, I would see that the students would write down, for the world to work, put it in inverted commas, and they would think that they have answered the question or they've incorporated the quote. When they haven't incorporated the quote at all they've done is just rewritten the quote. So they can't get any marks for that. So what you need to be able to do is take out aspects of the quote. So don't use the quote in its entirety, but just use aspects of the quote as a springboard in your response. I'll show you what I mean. So in this case, we're using a significant figure in Islam called Al-Ghazali. And have a look at how we're using the quote that's given here. So the quote is something about blah, 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 interrogated the beliefs of each sect and scrutinised the mysteries of each doctrine. Okay, so that's what Al-Ghazali was about. Okay, so that's a pretty good use of the quote. To tell whether we've incorporated the quote or not, we take the quote out of our paragraph and see whether our paragraph makes sense. So if we have a look at the second one now, read that one there. So you can see that it doesn't make sense. When he, the variants of Islam, so it doesn't make sense. So there's something missing in the middle here. That means that we've incorporated the quote well. This is what I'm saying a lot of students will do with that same quote, same information, but in this third circumstance, read that one there. So here we can see they've got the same content in the first two sentences, but then from here, if we take out that, this is shown through the quote, same quote, that's what I call a tack on. Okay, so that's just tacked on at the end. So the students, it looks as though the students thought, oh wow, I haven't used the quote yet, maybe I should tack it on at the end. All right, instead of thinking about it and using the quote in their response. And you'll see that it's a tack on because the exact same information which is here is here. So the paragraph still makes sense. That means the quote hasn't been incorporated effectively. So what do we do in the game situation when we get to this? Let's go back to the example that we used for showing the students that they don't, how they just regurgitate whatever rewrite whatever the quote is. All right, let's have a look at what we should do. We're given a quote, so we should probably try and use it. Even if it doesn't say with reference to the stimulus, it's still a good idea to use the quote. So in this case, it's a question 11, so it pertains to every student who studies studies of religion, and it's just coming up on your screen hopefully very soon. It's going to focus in. Okay. Alright, here we go. Sorry about that. So we've got the quote there. Aboriginal law embraces all we might variously describe as law, religion, philosophy, art and culture. Discrete groups of individuals are able to ascertain with practical precision their relationships, blah, blah, blah. There's no way we're going to be able to write this in its entirety. So what I do when I'm getting ready to write these responses is I see what sort of things that I could use as a springboard in my response, and I don't have to have it in inverted commas all the time. So I'm going to circle, well, I'm going to use law and religion because I think I'm going to be able to talk about that. Practical precision sounds good, so I'm going to use that as a springboard. I'm going to talk about right relationships. So I'm going to flip that around and talk about right relationships, even though it's different sequence. In my response, a marker is going to see that and think, oh wow, this student's actually had to think about it. And I'm going to use their possession. So there are 4 possible ways that I could use this quote here. And that's all I would need to do. So the question here says, discuss the continuing effect of dispossession on Aboriginal spiritualities. Continuing effect of dispossession. We're talking about them having possession here. So discuss, we're looking at the before and after. So the paternalistic nature of some of the atrocities of the past, they did have the best interests of the Aboriginals in mind. They just didn't know how to do it properly. And they didn't realise how damaging that it was. So I'd be talking about some of those past atrocities, how that created the dispossession, and what that effective dispossession is doing on Aboriginal spiritualities now. So I would use it straight away. So something like the paternalistic nature of governmental policies pertaining to Aboriginal spirituality, Aboriginal peoples, was far from implemented with practical precision. Okay, so there's an example of how I'd use the quote, and yes, it's at the end of my sentence, but my sentence wouldn't make sense, right? The paternalistic little peoples was far from implemented with. If I just put a full stop there, it doesn't make sense. So we would have to, that's not necessarily a tack on. Another way that I could use it, although the Australian government was attempting to create right relationships with Aboriginal peoples, and then I'll go on to explain that a bit. So you can see that I haven't necessarily used the quote in its entirety, but used just some of those little excerpts from it to try and use it as a springboard within my response. So that's how you need to practice that time and time and time again in so many different examples, so that when it comes to the game situation, you're not going to be stressed about having a quote and how to incorporate it.